Welcome to the 311 Odyssey podcast. Today we have three very special guests. We have the Hexum Siblings. We have Nick, Zack, and Angie. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Hey, welcome.
Hi.
Thanks for having us.
Well, let's just kick it off here with you, Nick.
We were Angie. We were both born in Wisconsin, right? Or where were you born?
Oh, I was born in Kansas City.
And then after she was born, we moved to Madison, Wisconsin for Dad to go to college. And then I was born. And then by around my first birthday, we moved to Omaha. Right? Is that roughly the timeline?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. And I just loved writing 1978 with you because it was such a idyllic childhood with so much outside, pre-technology fun of, building forts and a lot of outside time, a lot of freedom. We ran crazy around the neighborhood. And then I guess musically, I feel like we both started piano at the age of 5. We had a piano teacher named
Ginger
was her name?
Ginger Peterson.
Mrs. Peterson. Yeah. And she made us learn classical music, but you got really good at the piano. I remember being very overshadowed by your ability.
I was 2 years older than you, so that's to be expected.
Yeah. And let's see, other musical moments was we got that Casio keyboard that had like automatic play along where you could just like press one finger and it would do like a bossa nova beat with a bass line and chords and everything. And we had like a book of music that had like Bye Bye Love by the Everly Brothers and some Beatles songs, and we would harmonize and sing along with that. And various talent shows and school choir things, though of course we were in different grades, but it was fairly musical. What are your memories of that era of music?
Music wise, let's see if I have anything else to add. Yeah, I was really into the piano. When did you first start doing other instruments? Was that like a junior high era thing for you?
Yeah, the age of 12 is when I got a guitar, and first song I played was Margaritaville. And I feel like we had a full family jam session and made a recording of that, which probably didn't survive, with like everybody playing, like Dad on the Shakers.
Oh,
Do you
really?
remember this?
Dad? I definitely remember that there was a recording. Timeline's a little confusing because I don't know when you and Dad moved over to the other house. But yeah, we definitely did a Margaritaville recording, and I have a cassette tape in my closet of one of our recordings that I keep meaning to dub over to some kind of digital. Don't rub your hands. It's got to be painfully bad. I'm not sure I want to share this with the world. But
Sample.
We'll keep it.
Yeah.
Oh no, we're pirating that. We're sending it. It's going to be released.
Yeah, and then I guess we did have kind of a band at some point. I don't know how old I was, maybe 15, and you were 13 or 16, 14? I'm not sure. What age was that?
That sounds about right. 13. So Zach is 8 years younger than me, so he would have been about in kindergarten in that time, not ready to join the band.
Although at that point I was horribly playing violin at those moments.
That's right, the Suzuki style.
There's the violin right there. Still sounds bad today.
Yeah. Oh no way! That's sick.
That's not my childhood violin. I got another one to try to redeem myself as a violinist, and it still hasn't happened yet. So.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we had a band. I feel like we jammed with a few people, a couple incarnations. But the one, so as preparing for this, I put the timeline together. The very first band was the planning stages. Um, it never got it never it was just in the planning stages. And then I think the second band, and that was you and me, Angie, was the Right Profile.
I remember that name.
Yeah,
Yeah.
how do we get where did that name come from? That doesn't even ring any bells to me. I mean,
It's a Clash song. It's
that's fine. Okay.
yeah. And then I think my next band after that was the Extras, which were some of the guys from the Eds. Ed Birmingham was drumming, and then it was the Eds that had Tim in it. But yeah, our band, the Right Profile, was Lon Breslow on bass, Dirk Hofshire on guitar, Mark Kessler on drums, you on keyboards and singing, and me on guitar and singing. And I remember Goodbye to You with like the Motels.
Oh,
You remember
I forgot
singing
about
that song?
Yeah. And we did The Pretenders, Back to Ohio. Is that the name of the song?
Yes.
I'm not your stepping stone. I don't know exactly what the name is.
Yes.
The Monkeys?
The Untouchables.
Oh,
Yeah,
You-
we did the Untouchables version,
Okay.
but the Monkeys
Yeah.
were the first to
that's
popularize
the only
it.
one I know. I'll have to go look. That's cool.
Yeah.
And U2, one that has your eyes make a circle,
There you
whatever.
go.
Yes.
Two Hearts Beat as One, or something like that. One of those early songs off of Boy, like not was it Sunday Bloody Sunday? It was that era of U2. Yeah.
Were you guys ever writing any of your own music at that time together, or was it just covers?
I think it was
No.
just covers
Just covers.
Yeah.
Then?
for actual performing.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think the originals started for me until the Eds. Yeah. And then,
So
and
how
Zach,
long-
I
Go
want to
ahead.
hear during Zach's like, grade school. When did you start like playing piano and stuff? You had the violin when you were really little, and
Then quit.
then quit.
Luckily. Yeah, and then quit. Piano, I think I was 8 and took piano lessons for a couple of years. Not the same teacher that you guys had. And then I wanted to play saxophone, but for whatever reason, they got me a guitar first. So I started playing guitar first. And then in 7th grade or so, I started playing saxophone. And that was really when I found like my musical purpose. But then along the way, I also picked up bass because Angie, do you remember that yellow Fender Music Master bass? Yep.
I got that at like a thrift store or what do you call those
Pawn
places?
shop.
Pawn shop. I got that at a pawn shop. Yeah.
I wish I still had that thing, but yeah, I started playing bass just from that. The music was such a part of the environment that there was just always some amount of gear, keyboard, drum, bass, something to mess around with. And then also by virtue of having band practices at our house, I used to drive everybody crazy playing drums or just kind of whatever. Like just for myself, I wasn't like a super dedicated practicer, but I always just like to mess around and then do that for long enough, you figure out how to play different instruments. So yeah. And then music in college and saxophone and clarinet and flute and whole deal.
Yeah, I mean, when you were in high school, you were like a jazz shredder. So Mr. Groth definitely got his teaching together. And as a little aside, when he retired, Mr. Groth, the band teacher in high school who had taught me and Chad and Zach, we went back and played at his retirement party and wrote a song for him called Dear Mr. Groth. So that was a really nice like send off for this guy that helped us so much.
Yeah, he was.
But Angie,
he
you
was
weren't interested in that
really
playing into school, were you?
Not really. I mean, I was in chorus at school, but I think I just was off doing other things. I just remembered something though, Nick. Do you remember actually there was an even earlier band. Do you remember Nate the Great and the Super 8?
Yes. That was only in the planning stage, but it was very like serious in our minds. And that was when the one year that we lived in Greenbelt, Maryland, that we planned that because we had a friend named Nate. And so even though I don't think he had any musical ability, we were just so set on the name. So we had to go, it was you and me and Nate. So we had to go like find 5 other people to like plan our band, even though nobody had none of the rest of the people probably played music at all. We just had to have the Super 8.
Need some backup dancers.
Anything.
Tambourine. Yeah. Do it up. Well, it sounds like music was an easy thing for each of you to fall in line if it was, in the home and surrounding you as you grow up. That's a happy environment. That's awesome.
And a quick thing about our parents, Mom recorded an album and she was in a jazzy kind of pop band in college, and Dad played the trumpet and Mom played the piano really well. She could do like this like stride piano kind of boogie woogie kind of thing. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, and Dad, I think, also was in his high school chorus. It was pretty, but he didn't want to do solos, so he was like, I'm out, when it started to be like he was going to have to do a lot of solos.
Okay, so I want to rewind this really quick. We talked about, or Nick, you mentioned this 1978 video, which, I edited, of course, many people know. I'm assuming Angie and Zack have watched it.
Yeah.
This is like such a great piece of artwork that your dad put together. And the first thing I did was I called Nick and I said, is your dad a filmmaker? Is he a cameraman? Because the way he filmed it was like a professional cameraman. And there was a lot of travel in there, and there was a lot of you guys playing musical instruments. And I just want to talk about that video a little bit, the footage that's in there, and the station wagon, which for me ended up being the main character in the video. And like, because you went to Solvang, you went to the Redwood Forest. Like, talk a little bit about that time, and then go a little further into the music that you guys.
Yeah, so I think that a lot of that footage was from our California trip, which I think was like 1975. So I was like 5 and you were 7. And I love that they made the movie called The Way, Way Back about what life in the way back of the station wagon for the 2 kids that were pointing back was, because that was like our own world. Like we had our own like spaceship, like pointing backwards and like make believe. And sometimes we could get Dad to crack the window, but sometimes there was a lot of exhaust would come in the window. But yeah, that huge Plymouth yellow station wagon, that was cool how you had that be the main character on the editing. And Dad had a knack for lighting and getting cool shots, and there was lots of waving to the camera, and that's what you did.
Yeah.
Right.
I think one of the main things I think of when I think of being in the back there is looking at the clouds and naming the shapes of the animals.
Animals, yes.
On the road. Yeah.
Which came in a lyric on Grassroots in the song 6, Savor the Sun, but when the clouds come, make animals. It was like, went back to our... That's right. That's how it goes.
That is it.
That's great.
We went up to Montana a lot to visit. We went to Wisconsin and Montana would be a couple of the places that we went on those trips a lot in the wagon. But go ahead, B.
No, I was just going to reiterate how great that footage is and what an honor it was to work with it, because it's just such great Super 8 footage, and it just like really sells that song in that era. And there was no flash filter, anything. I just ran it raw and just went with it, which is like an editor's dream, you know? You're like,
Really good.
yes.
It turned out great.
Nice work, Peter.
So then,
It was very good.
then Zack is born, right? Like, this is just, music is embedded in your family.
Yeah. Like that was the main, a lot of the toys I remember was like a little xylophone or a little trumpet or a little plastic drum with sticks. And that was a huge part of it. That and tricycles were like the main gifts that we wanted and played with.
Some roller skates here and there.
Yeah, that's right. We had the kind of roller skates that would just clamp onto your shoes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we also had those. They sucked.
Yeah.
With metal wheel. With metal wheel.
Angie, you got
loud
skills.
They only roll one way, and then you can just take a step
What
forward.
What was your favorite instrument getting as a gift growing up for each of you guys?
Well, mine, I was very excited to receive a mandolin. And the reality of playing that thing was way harder than I thought. So I cannot say that I used it particularly well. It was a beautiful instrument, and I was very excited to get to own that.
Where is that thing?
I don't know, lost somewhere in the history of time. I don't know.
For me, it was would have been like 5th or 6th grade when I got the nylon string acoustic guitar, which then has been handed down the family. Like, is that the same guitar that Georgia worked on, Denise?
Yeah. And do you now have it again? Did it go back to you?
I have it back, and my kids now took a guitar lesson on it just today. So it's that same, probably like,
wow,
$50 guitar from however many years ago is still
great.
Making its way. So it's pretty cool.
That is amazing.
Awesome. Still carrying the family vibes. That's awesome for sure.
Yeah.
Very dope.
I don't know who got that keyboard that you could say a word and then it would play the word in the song. So like if you would say, for example, beer, it would go beer, 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 beer.
That was a classic.
So we had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah. Wish I still had all these things. I definitely would have. Well, I have stuff that imitates that now. That's like the new version of it, but
Big
it's all,
kids.
just an imitation of those things. Yeah.
Yeah, I love toy instruments. This thing's out of batteries, but this is called an omatone that you can it like is a monophonic keyboard, and you can also squeeze the mouth to go wow wow. $30 on Amazon, right. And I used it on a song last week. But my most exciting instrument was when I got my first electric guitar. It wasn't Guitar Center, but it was a chain like that. And I remember there was one by our house, but we had to drive to Council Bluffs for some reason because they had a better selection. And it was a PV guitar that was basically like a Stratocaster, but extra like pointy and supposedly modern looking. So this would have been like 1983. And I remember they had a guitar that had a amp built into it. And I wanted that one because I thought that was so cool. But the guy was like, no, this separate amp sounds way better. You do not want the amp built into the case. But I remember when, of course, I didn't know what I was doing, so I couldn't demo it. So the guy was like, let me show you a few things. And he cranks it up and he's like, he plays I Love Rock and Roll by Joan Jett, and tears welled up. And I couldn't believe how good it sounded. I was like, yes, we'll take it. That is so perfect. So that was my first exciting instrument. The PV.
Is that this guitar?
Oh,
right there.
Yes, that's the one.
That looks like
send it.
The PV.
Send that photo to us.
Yes.
Wait, show that. You're so small. The guitar is bigger than you are.
Exactly, because I stole Nick's guitar to. Yeah. There's Angie's bass that I stole too.
All right.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's the benefit of being the much younger brother. It all trickles down.
So this would be the first time I've ever heard someone tell a story that Joan Jett's "I Love Rock and Roll" brought someone to tears.
Tears.
I love Joan Jett so much. Oh my God. I couldn't believe that he picked that song. I actually loved a lot of punk rock girls. Joan Jett, Bow Wow Wow. There was a few others. I loved the Pretenders, the Go-Go's. Like that was my jam in the early '80s. Was like cute punk rock and metal girls.
Another dime in the jukebox, baby.
Well, we've heard Nick's favorites just now and over the years, the Clash and various influences that he's had. But for each of you, Angie and Zach, what was the very first band or first music that you heard that wasn't a hand-me-down from an older sibling or from your parents that you might have been influenced by, but that was like, this is my band, like first time music just grabbed you?
Well, I don't know if it's the very first time, but I definitely associate my teen years with listening to a lot of Prince.
There you go.
And then after that, and I also listened to a lot of Rolling Stones. So those are kind of the two things that really kept my tape deck busy in my car.
Cool.
Driving around the windows.
Yeah. How about you, Zach?
I mean, seeing 311 play, when I was a kid, because I guess I was 12, judging by the 35 years ago thing, that was definitely like formative for sure.
Yeah.
But as far as the music that really captured my creativity and imagination, where I wanted my life to go, was listening to jazz. Listening to Wayne Shorter and Miles Davis and John Coltrane, and all through school, those were all the T-shirts that I had. It's like jazz nerd T-shirts. Yeah. So that was definitely my thing. And the way that I got into jazz was a combination of different family record influences. Like our dad always played, I just associate like Saturday mornings and pancakes with Bill Evans and Red Garland and all like the great jazz pianists. Mm-hmm. And then because Nick listened to Billie Holiday, that sort of made it like okay to listen to jazz. And so then I really got super nerdy into every jazz singer.
Cool.
Speaking of
That's
Billy,
awesome.
that just gave me a memory of you and I, Nick. We used to put on Aaron Copland's Billy the Kid and ride around on our pretend horses in the living room.
Yeah, the 8-track collection, Billy the Kid was huge, and we had a Santana 8-track. We had Janis Joplin, and then you and I really enjoyed the Styx album, Paradise Theater, rockin' the paradise tonight. And our folks had this crazy sound system with these massive Klipsch loudspeakers that was like
No way.
bigger than a washing machine, like just huge. Like Dad had the best recording gear, and they had like the quad system on the 8-track that it wasn't stereo, it was quad. So there was 4 different audio channels going at once. It was like a precursor to Atmos and everything that we have today. Yeah, that's why it's called 8-track, because some were like 4 stereo programs, but then like the high end ones were like 2 quad programs that you could have 4 different audio channels going on.
And you needed a special player for that, I'm assuming.
Yeah, you had to have a 8-track machine, but also a receiver that had quad, and it had like that like a joystick where you could finely balance between the 4. Yeah,
that is so futuristic. That is crazy.
Exactly. It's wild that it's only like now-ish that kind of technology is finally taken hold.
Yeah.
No, now
Then
we have
later
Bluetooth speakers. It's all like mono just coming out.
Then later, the turntable was like a sacred item, the whole ritual of cleaning the record.
Yeah.
That was a B&O
That's right.
turntable.
Yeah. All this Swedish stuff, I guess, was like the high end. Yeah,
Dang,
we were
dude,
pretty spoiled.
I got a lot of respect for the old man there coming in with the 4-channel stereo system. That is crazy.
Yeah.
I got to say, this conversation is making me realize how much music really was interwoven throughout our childhood in a way that I didn't really appreciate until talking about it.
Yeah.
Boy. I remember, with Mom, like when it was time to everybody to go somewhere, if you were ready, you went to the piano first. Like I'm ready to go, so I'm going to play piano. That was sort of like the signal, like it's time to walk out the door. That's what you do to kill time, which I still do now. It's better than just like staring at your phone,
Yeah, I remember, and we had an intercom system, and I remember Angie calling me on the intercom, like, Nick, come up and jam at your leisure. And I was like, it was just like so thrilled that she wanted to jam with me that was on the Casio, and we were like harmonizing. But yeah, it was a lot of really special memories. And regarding the Billie Holiday thing, I'm opening my next solo EP with Solitude, cover of Billie Holiday with our mutual friend Joel Martin playing the pedal steel. But
awesome.
And as far as, go ahead.
I was just going to say, circling back around to 1978, that was really special for me, for us to kind of return to kind of our way of interacting as siblings with music as kind of that language for us, because it had been decades probably since we really did anything together musically. So it was really special.
It was.
And especially that song 1978 came out of it, which is such a celebration of the childhood that we shared.
And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and on Nick's debut, he was reminiscent about some of these days and thinking back to just recent times with working with you, and was praising you, saying what a wordsmith you are, and how thrilled that he was to have this opportunity to rewind and throw some fan tunes out there.
Definitely. And there was a little nod to the dynamic that since she was my big sister and she was like better than me at everything, but so I had to be the rebel. So she had to like get me out of a lot of sticky situations and stick up for me because I was the rebel. I was the mouthy kid. And that's why I said in that song, Big Sister made sure I'm okay, in 1978.
Well, before we move on to our next topic, I have to mention this beach trip that you guys took. Do you remember what beach it is? And can we just talk about Nick Hexum's style in this video?
It's Chincoteague Island.
Oh yeah, so that would have been
when we
during
lived in Maryland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys ever see the wild horses out there?
Yeah,
Yes.
we did.
Yeah, we've done that many times. I'm in Delaware, so I'm not too far from there.
Oh, okay.
It's a nice place.
Well, speaking of bringing it back, why don't you just bring back that style, Nick, on your own?
Will do. Good idea.
Ocean Pacific by Nick Hexum.
And striped shirt. Definitely wear the striped shirt.
And kids with striped socks pulled up to your knees.
Nick used to
yeah.
have the corduroy OP shorts. He was on point back in the day.
Yes, fashion was important. I guess that was just right before the preppy look came in, and you had to have an Izod. But yeah, the OP that was some cool stuff. Why didn't they not revive that brand? That could be hot right now.
I was thinking about once 311 took off a bit, and maybe when they moved out to LA, what were you guys' thoughts about Nick striking it out to LA and trying to take 311 farther than a local band?
First, Ange?
What year was that? 19.
Well, I moved
Why
out
not
by
a couple-
myself in 88, and then I came back in 90, and then 311 moved out in 92.
Yeah, I mean, Nick wanted to be a rock star from the time he was a little kid. So,
The quotes.
it was always his thing. I definitely was impressed that he was willing to send it and move out to LA and make that dream a reality. I don't think it really came home to me until the early 90s when I had graduated from college and I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area, and our alternative rock station had some little feature where they would have two songs go head to head, and then the listeners would call in and say which one they liked. And Do You Right was the song that was on there, and it was winning like week after week. And then not too long after that, All Mixed Up was a huge hit on the radio. So I think that's when I really was like, dang, he really did it. Yeah.
He did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
And
For me, it felt like just the logical progression of what you did. You know, if you wanted to play music, then you just moved to LA and then blah, blah, blah. But it didn't occur to me how bonkers it was until I myself moved to New York at 22. And just imagining you being in Los Angeles at 17, going directly from Omaha to LA and living in downtown LA or whatever it was, I guess, is just like...
Full bonkers.
It's insane, especially just by, you know, like whatever 80s or 90s parenting or whatever. Now, you know, like, will you let your kids walk a block to school by themselves? Like, that's like a big decision at this point. Meanwhile, 17, go for it. Fake ID. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Make it till you make it.
Yeah. It's crazy, you know?
It is. And Dad was like, he tried to tell me no, and I was like, I'm going. Don't even try. You know, he was like, well, can't you just wait and go to college? I'm like, I am going. This is happening. But you guys remember coming to any of those early shows? Like, Angie, were you at that very first show at Sokol Hall 35 years ago today, or do you remember?
Probably not. I was probably just off in college because I went to college in Philadelphia, so it was not around Omaha right when you were getting started on a lot of that stuff.
Wait, what year would that have been?
90.
90. Okay. But that very first one I was definitely at too, and that was, I think, 7th grade for me. But the video clip is from the later one, from when you guys, I think you played at Peony Park or something. It was like the last show before you moved to LA.
Moved to LA, yep.
You guys big fans of 311, huh? That's the band. Your brother's the lead singer. All right, you must be a little Hexum then. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
What's your first name, little Hexum?
Zack.
We have Zack Hexum here, alias brother of Nick Hexum. Except he has blonde hair and it's much shorter, and he's shorter as in stature.
He's somewhere.
Anything you want to say to your brother? Wish him good luck. He's moving. I'm sure you've heard.
Yeah.
Anything you want to say?
Good luck.
Good luck. Do you love him, or he's just kind of like your brother?
Yeah.
The early times I saw Nick was probably at the Ranch Bowl, all those shows at the Ranch Bowl in Omaha. But also we saw a really cool show with him where Korn was the opener, and it was in this little tiny dive bar in Berkeley where there was literally like a pool table right in the middle of the floor that we all had to kind of stand around to see the stage. So that was a pretty exciting early moment.
I mean, the Ranch Bowl was such a special place. I mean, we saw 311 there a million times, but that was also the place where, like, you know, any band that was touring that was trying to get from, I don't know, whatever, somewhere to Chicago or Denver to Chicago would stop and play there. So we saw Stone Temple Pilots play there in front of like 10 people. I mean, just everybody. And now it's a Walmart, you know, what used to be the Ranch Bowl.
Of course.
So,
Yeah, Smashing Pumpkins, Fishbone, Bad Brains, Chili Peppers. I'm not sure if Nirvana played there. They played at the Lift Ticket Lounge over there in whatever part of Omaha that is. But yeah, that was a cool place. And of course, the Ranch Bowl was mostly a bowling alley that added a rock venue, and then it added volleyball courts and a pool hall and video arcade and a radio station. I mean, it was the place in Omaha. So it was super sad when they sold it to put up a Walmart there.
Yeah. Peony Park too. I mean, I remember you playing not just that farewell show, but some show that was maybe in the middle of the day, some weird.
Yes,
do you remember?
and Grandpa Lofton came to that.
Yeah. It was like the one time when like your grandparents can come to see a rock band play because it is in the middle of the night. And I think that was the one where, because it was probably like 3:00 in the afternoon on a Wednesday or whatever, you're like, I want to thank everyone for coming. Thank you. Because there was like people because it was in the middle of the day.
That was a Steve Martin joke that I used there. And I remember Grandpa often being like, so I just want to say that your performance was good. Like he was basically saying he didn't care for the rest of the band, but he liked me. But I mean, it was like 3 generations different, so I wouldn't expect that he would enjoy that. But
nice.
And Grandma Jessie wasn't too sure about your rock and roll ways. There was a time when you got your hair dyed and you had like shaved in levels in the hair, so it went from blonde to browner all the way down. And when she saw Nick after this haircut, she cried.
Oh no.
I feel like that was when graduated from Swanson. So the summer after 6th grade, I the last day of school, I'd been bugging my parents to get like a punk rock haircut, and it was the last day of school. And yeah, it was cut in lines, and it went black, like she said, natural brown, and then just like a reddish, and then like white on top. It was kind of like the Kaja Gugu, if anybody remembers the '80s band Kaja Gugu, like the spiky, baby ostrich hair.
Man.
Your hairdresser was probably going, "What is going on here? What are we doing?"
I remember it took a long time. I was in the chair for hours.
So Nick and Zach, you guys have toured together briefly over the years. I know there was also a moment when Zach came out at 311 Day in 04 and played a saxophone appearance, which, super dope.
Yeah.
Get the family up there. You guys want to talk about those brief stints? Anything that you guys remember before, after, in preparation, or just, how it was just a fun family day?
I remember the first time that we made music together, at least we recorded something, was at the house that you guys, I guess, rented when you first moved to LA. And you had like some kind of like a Linn drum or some kind of like early drum machine sampler kind of deal. And then I recorded saxophone on like an ADAT or something.
Wow.
Really long time. Yeah. I would have been like 16 or something, I think. Maybe 15.
Yeah,
Van
Nuys house. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And we did, I think, just 2 songs. And that was like, that was the very first time we recorded music together.
Yeah. And then after college, I mean, your chops, so Zach went to the best school for saxophone, North Texas, and played in the best band and had the #1 chair. So he was like the baddest saxophone player in town down there. So once he got out of school, then we recorded his instrumental jazzy funk debut, which had on drums.
Still in college. Oh, hey, there it is. Wow. There it is. In real life.
Great
I was still, I think that was actually my sophomore year of college when we did that. I was still in school at that point.
Cool.
Yeah. Yep. Flew out there, and I was in LA for like 10 days, a week or something. Maybe it was like spring break. We just basically wrote and recorded the album in a week. It was like, write some piece of the song, the instrumental stuff, so we weren't worrying about lyrics,
Right.
but the instrumental thing in the evening, and the next day track it, and then the next day track it, and then I went home, and then you had Chad record drums on it, I think just at your house, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chad played on that album.
Yeah.
Did anybody else from the band play on that album?
You played guitar on it a bit, on a couple of
A
tracks.
tiny bit of guitar, but pretty much Zach played everything.
Tiny
Like
bit of
I was
guitar.
just recording him track.
Is that
after
illegal at
track
that
after track.
time? Were you allowed to do that with your label? Were we allowed to talk about that?
I don't recall that being an issue.
And it sold so many copies that we really just dodged the bullet there that able to arrest us.
We did extensive money laundering to hide the piles of money that came in.
Put this on the cutting room floor.
You were
Me
listed
too.
as Doug Dover on guitar, actually, for that reason, because you would have had to get permission for your record label.
Oh my God, I didn't remember that.
Pretty sure.
But I'm sure there was a sideman clause. I would be allowed to just play a track, but anyway.
Yeah. Yep, and then we
Okay.
did when I moved to New York. That was really when I started singing in earnest. And I remember having a conversation with you about music. You're like, at a certain point, you need to sing, right? You have to. It's like that's the job. You have to sing. And I was like, oh, I guess I do. I had been listening to a lot of like Harry Connick just like before that. And so when I moved to New York to be a jazz musician, I moved at the same time with a bunch of other college friends. And that we just put together a band, and then eventually we did some demos, and then sent those to you, and then we flew to LA and recorded the Overground record out there.
Yeah,
Right there.
there it is.
On point.
Boom, boom. Yeah. And that would have been 2000, I guess. Yeah.
Right. And then a couple years after that, we did the Hexum Brothers Rock for Carrie, which was basically like a bar band tour of just mostly, I don't know, we sounded like roots rock and roll, but it was a pretty wide variety of different covers. And then we had a much more finely dialed in tour for my quintet. Gosh, what was that, like 10 years ago now?
Yeah.
11, 2014 maybe?
13.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember because everyone's like, "Oh no, Nick's going solo." You're like, 311's gonna break up. It's like, and you were like, "No, this is just," and you named it My Shadow Pages, which I thought was like the perfect title for it. It's like, no, this is just me.
Yeah. I was worried that people would be mad at me, and a few people did, but not in the band. Nobody did, but I did hear other people say we were concerned. But
But you guys toured on that too, and the quintet sounded great live. She Love disappeared for a second, but that was one
Glitchiness.
thing. I was so happy that I caught that tour because it only happened once. So
yeah.
That was fun.
Only happened once. That was a fun tour. And just the improvisation that we did was like, doing the dice jams, which is where we would roll the dice to pick a tempo, roll the dice to pick a key, roll the dice to pick a mode. And I have all those recordings. Those are some really cool musical explorations we did.
Healthy too, because you got to know your shit.
Yeah. Having that level of player. And it was very cool for me to have Zach help me fill in different gaps in my theory and technique and stuff, because I never had that kind of formal training. So to have my little brother teaching me stuff was pretty
It was
cool.
a lot of fun. Yeah. Pleasure.
So Zach, you went to is it North Texas State?
It used to be called, University of North Texas. It used to be called North Texas State. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, talk to me about that, because it's a music school.
Yeah, I think, I don't know about currently, but it is either the biggest or second biggest or something, other than like Indiana University, biggest music school. So the jazz program there, at least when I was there, is 9 different big bands. And they're, the 1 o'clock through 9 o'clock band is when you rehearse, give or take. And very, very competitive in a good way. And it was just like it's in Denton, Texas, which is near Dallas and Fort Worth. So there's a lot of like jazz gigs to do nearby. It was just a kind of an awesome time, because you're just around all these people who are doing exactly what you're trying to do. You're learning as much from your peers as you are from the teachers. Then, you're like living in a house for like, $150 a month or something. Cost of living was basically nothing. So you could just only worry about jazz. It was pretty legit. Good learning environment.
Nora
you're not
Jones,
just
one of
learning-
your classmates?
Yeah, Nora Jones was there at the same time as me.
Wow.
And also, I never knew these dudes directly, but the band Snarky Puppy, which is, really went on to do some great things and won a bunch of Grammys and whatever else. They were all North Texas guys. But basically, anytime you hear a film score that has, recorded in America, there's going to be North Texas guys in it, or every Broadway show is for sure going to have North Texas guys in it too. And all sorts of, university teachers all over the place all went to North Texas too. So.
And you're not just learning the saxophone during this time. You're learning all kinds of instruments. Like, how many instruments can you play?
I play. I mean, and some of these from like we were talking about earlier, just from having them around. But I play keyboards, guitar, piano, bass, some upright bass, drums, flute, clarinet, and saxophone.
Jesus Christ!
It's kind of whatever I can get my hands on. I mean, you can't. Basically, I've always been a saxophone player who messed around with some other instrument. And by the time you get to be 47, if you concentrate on piano for 5 years and then guitar for 5 years and then bass for 5 years, then you kind of get some experience under your belt. So I do music for TV and film now, which being able to play these multiple instruments is handy because then try to use real instruments whenever you can. I work with my wife, Nikki. And this is our studio here, converted garage studio.
Awesome.
Did you learn any more instruments, Angie, or was it mostly piano for you?
Mostly piano. I've kind of come back to music in the last few years. I sing in a chorus now, so that's sort of my return to that, and I really enjoyed that. But pretty much, I mean, I had that bass, but
right.
Level of mastery with that piano and singing are my main things.
And she's modest about her mandolin. She's an expert mandolin player, but she's modest about it.
The mandolin that went into the void.
No, that's what you're hearing on Nick's track. She's just has a cover name for it there. How many instruments are you up to, Nick, that you can play?
I used to be a good bass player. I wish I kind of kept my chops up because the forerunner to 311 was Unity, and I was the bass player in there and was like learning every flea bass line and was really good. And then I wanted to focus on singing. But I think that was the first instrument that I got, like, I felt like really comfortable on, felt really good on. I never got great at the piano and was decent at guitar, but now the guitar for me was probably in my 30s that I really buckled down to get my technique good and learn to play every scale and every position and all these different chords and stuff like that. And then recently pedal steel, which is the hardest instrument to learn. You have to use both feet, both hands, and your knee. You're using a volume pedal, and it's very difficult. No frets or anything, so it's just all sense of ear and 10 strings. I mean, it's really. I'm not great at it, but I can competently do it and use a little studio magic to edit together some stuff. But and then adding mandolin and banjo. And dobro, which is kind of like it's a slide guitar, but like an old timey lap one. That's about it. I wish I would have had time to get good at woodwinds. That's one thing I've never had, but I might get really good at the omatone.
Nice.
Well, getting into the newer EPs and stuff, we know Angie wrote on 1978. How did that come about? Was it like an intentional thing? Let's write a song together. Did you have music first, or working on lyrics? Like, how did it come together?
Well, I think I had just been really impressed to know that Angie was getting into really going for it with poetry and getting published in journals and stuff. And then she got up the guts to share some poetry with me and Zach on a text thread, and it's really cool imagery. And so then I think I just said, maybe you'll help me with this side project I'm starting out. And just threw out some different ideas and talked about the philosophy of just trying to go into history and to talk about emotionally pivotal moments, whether it was good or bad, and just see. I mean, she did a lot of the heavy lifting on the songs that we collaborated on. She definitely did more than half. So is that basically kind of your memory, Angie, of how it?
Well, lyrically, but I mean, Nick writes the song and then he gives me the track with mumbles on it. So it's just, he's singing nonsense syllables. And then I try to come up with something that kind of fits with his idea for the song. And it's pretty challenging to figure out words that are going to track those mumbles just like he is envisioning it. So it was a good challenge for me. And I think we had some pretty good results.
Yep. And there's still more to come.
I agree. And speaking of more to come, since it's been a family affair with your daughter and your sister, any plans to loop Zack into the future 15, 16 some odd songs we have coming up in 2025?
Most definitely. We had talked about trying to do something kind of Joni Mitchell-ish. So when I get back home from tour, we can pursue that. But that's like what's great about Zack's the breadth of instruments and influences, that he can go anywhere.
Well, we always have to ask this of our guests. What's your favorite 311 song?
Let's see here. There's one that I listen to on my running mix, but now that you put me on the spot, I'm having trouble thinking of it. Let's see. I think it's Freak Out. In fact, I got my black belt in Taekwondo about 10 years ago, and if I had gone on to the next belt level, there's a thing where you have to do this whole choreographed routine to music, and I was thinking that Freak Out is the song that I would have used had I done that.
Very cool.
Wow.
For me, I'll say it's a tie between just the first ones that came to my mind. 1, 2, 3, and Paradise, for whatever reason, that one popped in my head. And then, of course, Forever Now, the song that I co-wrote with my wife, Nikki, and Nick. The three of us wrote together.
Yes.
There you go. That's a good song.
Well, I just shifted gears back to 311 over the past couple weeks, and I have this song that is 7 minutes long, and it's a very classical. It goes through all these different. I call it like a sinfonia, like a miniature symphony, and so it's my current favorite 311 song. So I'm hoping the guys will get in there and record it and rehearse it with me after summer tour.
Ooh.
Awesome. Yeah.
All right. I guess that kind of wraps us up here. Any last words? Anything you want to say? Anybody? All good?
Thank you. Thank you to my siblings. Thank you to you guys for the support and putting this together.
Sure.
A fun day.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Congratulations on 35 years of 311. And that's it for today. All right. 311 Odyssey out.
We appreciate you guys.
I'm going to do a short tour with Kenny from Water Tower. The way Kenny and Water Tower play is that they have like an old-timey mic, and they just circle around that. No in-ears, no monitors, no click, nothing. It's just complete 80 years ago. So yeah, we're going to do a ritzy kind of tour and do some like Americana shows, and we're going to put up a vinyl of it's going to have all three of the first 3 EPs plus a bonus track.